Kishore here from the Global Leadership Excellence Program. In today's video, we're going to take a critical look at Gallup Strengthsfinder Test, or CliftonStrengths as they call it. I talked about this test on this channel before, and I received feedback to also cover the criticism around it. And I believe this makes perfect sense, as this test is so widely used for recruiting, self-assessment and team building. So in today's video, we're going to take a look at the criticism around the test design, the science behind it, and also the result this test gives us. And as I'm a former Gallup employee, I can also add some inside information. And we will come to quite some surprising findings and recommendations. So if you already took this test, or if you're about to take this test, you should definitely watch this video. So let's get into it. So you came across Gallup Strengthfinder Test, or CliftonStrengths. It is the same test, by the way. They just rebranded it. And you are about to take it, or you already took it. Well, then it makes perfect sense to get an understanding how valid this test is at all and how valid the results are. And this is the intention of this video, to create some clarity. And clarity also means clarity about me. What are my intentions behind it? How biased am I with my assessment? Well, I told you I am a former Gallup employee. I left Gallup 15 years ago. Since then, I was working in the science field around leadership psychology. I'm teaching at 2 universities. And since roughly around 10 years, me and my team, we help through the Global Leadership Excellence Program leaders from all over the world achieve high performance and excellence. So you'll get background information, some scientific analysis behind it, and also from the practical point of view. But when I left Gallup, I left in good terms, so it is not a revenge video. Also, you will find Gallup's link for the Strengthsfinder in the description, and this is just for convenience matter for you. It's not an affiliate link, and I am not paid by Gallup. I'm not paid by anyone to review this or to promote some other test, and I'm also not gonna sell you some other strength tests from some other company or from us, as we don't develop strength tests. So it is merely there to help you understand, is this the best tool for you, and for you to find the tools which help you achieve high performance. So let's get into it, and before we're going to start, don't forget to subscribe, like and ring the bell. And this takes us now to the first question: what is the actual intention of this test? The test was developed by Don Clifton, a US-American psychologist who was researching in the field of positive psychology. And he discovered that people are far more likely to excel in something if they focus on building out their strengths rather than trying to minimize their weaknesses. One may argue if this is always true, but those were his findings. And then he also identified a set of 34 talents each one of us has in himself or herself, and he designed this test to identify this set of talents, the ranking of your talents. He came up with the idea that this could be extremely useful for recruiting people for jobs. So he identified for various job descriptions the talents which are more likely to help people excel on this job. And then he had the perfect recruiting tool. This was the intention, the perfect recruiting tool. He then, of course, offered his service to other companies to help them recruit their people. And through his company, SRI, he made then a lot of money. He was very successful with it. And he made so much money that he was able to buy Gallup. This is why Gallup is until now owned by the Clifton family. And this test is called CliftonStrengths in memory to Don Clifton. So we got now the background. It was basically designed to be a recruiting tool. Later, it was also more used as a self-assessment tool, as well as a team building tool to create then complementary teams. So we have a little bit background, and now we need to understand the test design. Is it really as waterproof as Gallup claims it to be? Now, to be fair, from science perspective, there is no such thing like an unbiased, waterproof test design in psychology. In the past years, I have proved and checked roughly around 120 master theses in psychology, and never did I find a test design which is truly unbiased. But we need to be aware of those biases, and we need to understand how they may impact our results. Well, the test as such consists of 177 questions, and those questions, they have a time limit, and it takes you roughly around 20 to 30 minutes to answer them all. Now, each question is answered in a pair of statements, with a pair of statements which compare two aspects. For example, I plan my every move versus I always trust my gut feeling. Then you can use a 5-point scale to give your answer if you're the planning person, gut feeling person, or anything in between. Makes sense, sounds simple, but let's take a closer look at the possible implications. For this, we're going to do a little test. Are you more the planning person? Then write in the comments planning. If you're more the gut feeling person, write in the comments gut feeling. I'm later going to reveal also my answer. We need this for a little test, which we're going to use later on to review your answers. So planning or gut feeling, write it in the comments. And then we're going to start with our first psychological bias. It's called the self-serving bias. Now, if you answer this kind of tests, of course, you are not unbiased because you are yourself serving the answers. And this could have two implications. Number one, maybe I am gonna give answers in such a way that I believe they might positively impact the test results. The other could be, I truly believe this to be the right answer, but I am a little bit influenced through social expectations. So I believe, yeah, this is how I should answer, and I even believe that's me, but it's more the social influence which lets me answer in such a way. But I could also believe I truly answer, there's no social influence, but it's still biased. For example, if you take a look at talent shows on TV, there are singing contests, and you see some candidates who think, no, you don't have any singing talent, but they believe they have. So the perception of reality is different. Their perception of reality is that they're a brilliant singer. The neutral perception of reality is, no, you are not. Now, this could also happen here on this test. Now, for example, planning or gut feeling. I may have answered in such a way where I'd say, yeah, I'm always the planner, which I am not. Maybe you know this among your people, maybe somewhere in your team or among friends who consider themselves to be high performers, and you think, not really. It's not that they're lying to you, but it's a perception error. So thus, the self-serving bias exists. But is it a fair criticism? I would say no. Why? Because all those tests on the market, they rely on the candidate giving answers. Now, if we take a look at clinical psychology, self-serving assessments are even used to identify if someone is a narcissist, if someone is a psychopath. Even for clinical psychology and psychiatric assessments, those kind of tests are used. Well aware that it is not an unbiased solution, but as we can scan people's brains, it's the best we have. So it is, yes, it is a valid point of criticism, but I think it's not fair because it's just what we have. How precise are the statements? This takes us back to our little experiment where you wrote on the comments planning or gut feeling. If you didn't do it yet, do it now. Are you on the job the person who plans every move, or are you always listening to your gut feeling? Two extremes, of course, but what would be more your tendency, planning or gut feeling? So, I would have answered planning. Okay, but would I have given the same answer if I'm reconsidering my specific situations? For example, when I'm tired, I'm listening more to the gut feeling. It's easier, of course. And also there's situations when I discover that I listen to my gut feeling and I try, after I took the decision, to rationalize my decision. Also happens. Also, It happens quite often that I just go by the gut feeling when hiring a person. So I'm not the planning guy, I suddenly discover. I'm more the gut feeling person. Now, why is that so? Are the statements not precise? No, they're not precise enough for me to deeply understand what does gut feeling actually mean, what does planning actually mean. Planning, does this mean really being absolutely rational from the head, or does this also include some fuzzy kind of assessment, which others would define as a gut feeling? Or is gut feeling definitely something which is always just like this out of the gut? Or does it mean, gut feeling, that I basically look at options and then do a very quick assessment which I consider to be planning, but it's actually gut feeling? I could dig into this further and further. You get the point. Everyone understands a little bit differently, and even me, I may understand and answer these statements differently depending on the situation I was on this day maybe half an hour ago. So no, they're not truly precise, and they don't let us allow to give a true, unbiased answer. What do you think about this? Do you think this is a fair point of criticism? Just write it into the comments. But we're going to continue. Now with the next point. What does science say about this test? So you may ask yourself, why don't we take a closer look at other statements and evaluate them? Well, we could save time by taking a look at the science perspective and to get an understanding if this approach is valid at all. And for this, we don't need to do some scientific calculations. We just need to take a look at some basic rules of science and if they are met. And one of those rules is, if you set up an experiment, it needs to be transparent. Meaning, everyone needs to take a look at how it is conducted and how you obtain the results. Because otherwise it would be a black box and some magic. Makes sense. So when I was with Gallup, I always ask, how is it calculated? How does it work? And then I was told not to ask anymore. Why? Well, would you ask Coca-Cola how the formula works? Surely not. And I got the point. Sure, it's the business secret. It's their business. And if they would reveal how it works, everyone could do the calculations on the Excel sheet. They would not need Gallup anymore. I get their point, but from the science perspective, we got what we dislike most, a black box where some magic is happening. Okay, this takes us to the next rule of science, which is reliability. Reliability is that if you do an experiment or a test, you should be able to repeat it over and over again under the same circumstances with the same settings, and you should get the same results, because otherwise it's just chance or luck. Makes sense again. Now I myself, I participated in Gallup Strengthsfinder Test, I think 9 or 10 times, just for the sake of it, to get an understanding how reliable it is. And I got significant different results. Significant means not that my top strength suddenly ended up on bottom. No, but that the top 3 strengths, for example, were later under 8, 9 or 10. Now, why is that so? Well, our life experience changes. Maybe I was working on a project the last week where I used other talents and thus my answering patterns are different. Or I talked to a colleague this morning and somehow this conversation changed with my opinion on things. Or maybe I'm tired or I'm more alert, I'm sometimes more pessimistic, more optimistic. We're just human beings. Now you may say, yeah, but then the circumstances have changed. And also the setting has changed. Maybe you're doing it at a desk at home, and otherwise you're doing it on the train or on the plane or whatsoever. Yes, so the reliability is not disproven. But we should always be aware that this test does not give us hard-cut, clear, defined results for eternity. It is basically a floating process and things change. This we need to be aware of when we later take a look at the validity for recruiting purposes. Let us take a look at another very important rule of science, which is validity. Validity means that the results which we obtain should be neutrally defined and clearly defined and then meaningful. For example, we can clearly define what a supernova is. This was defined by scientists, and if you then look into space, you identify something, you can say, is it a supernova or not? Same heart attack. It's clearly defined by scientists what a heart attack is, and then once you do measurements, etc., you can understand, has this patient got a heart attack, yes or no? Now, if we take a look at the strengths or talents were defined by whom? Not by some other scientists. It's not a clear-cut definition, but it was Don Clifton himself. He identified those, and he doesn't reveal how he identified them. He doesn't reveal how they're defined. For example, what is ideation? One of the strengths. What is strategic? How did he come up with it? How it is exactly defined? So it's all rather vague. For example, creativity. Would you say creativity is a talent? Just your opinion. Write it in the comments. Really curious. Would you say yes or no? Creativity. Yes or no? My opinion is yes. It is a talent. Because I've got this wonderful colleague who does all thumbnails and marketing, etc. She's a creative brain and I see talent here. But maybe you're going to disagree. Because Don Clifton, he said it's not a talent. Why? I don't know. But it's not in the 34 strengths. You will not find there creativity. This is quite interesting. Now, if you ask Gallup, they will tell you, well, creativity consists of 3 different talents which influence creativity. For example, ideation, okay, coming up with ideas, okay, makes sense. Then strategy, and then futuristic, looking to the future. Well, I told you about my wonderful colleague, and if she sees this, she will not be upset because she knows this. She's a creative brain, but she is a bit lost in time and space. She lives and plans in the here and now. We have a positive approach, we're not upset about this, but definitely strategy and futuristic is not in her top 5. Definitely not. It's one of the lowest, but still, she's a creative brain. Now, my understanding apparently is totally different, and my understanding is also not scientific, but here on the other hand we are using 34 talents or 34 strengths, and we also have a rather fuzzy approach. So this whole concept is rather vague. Now, to sum this up from the science perspective, we see, I would say, many non-strengths or weaknesses, which makes it a bit difficult to call this a reliable tool. Now, what do you think about this? Write it in the comments if you approve or disapprove with me, because science also allows discussions and I love to discuss with you about this. But this takes us now to the next very important point. What are the results? How can we use the results, and are they at all useful? Now we come to the criticism around the results which we get before I'm going to reveal my surprising conclusion and recommendation. Well, for this criticism, we asked the members of our Global Leadership Excellence Program. This is a program where we help leaders from all over the world develop their leading skills and develop their teams to excellence and high performance and to trigger some true change. And many of them encountered Gallup's test, and so we asked them what they think about it and what their points of criticism was. By the way, if you're interested in joining this program, you may apply here. The link is pinned in the comments. We accept around 15 to 20 new applicants per month. It's really a fun way to join an amazing community which supports each other and to truly develop your leadership capacities and skills. But back to the most common points of criticism. Here we collected 4 common points, and number 1, this was that the results are rather broad and vague. Well, Gallup gives you the ranking of your 34 talents, and it recommends that you should focus on the top 5, build them out, but also take a look at 6 to 10, because they may impact your top 5. So basically, take a look at the top 10 and focus on the top 5, which may sound smart, but we are already looking at 1/3 of all possible talents. And this is rather broad and leads to the Barnum effect. Well, the Barnum effect is when you read, for example, a horoscope. The broader the description is, and the more you believe in it, the more likely you develop the feeling that this was directly written for you, exactly describing you. Now here also we have a rather broad set of explanations and descriptions, 1/3 of all possible talents. So it's very likely that you discover yourself in there. And if you believe in it, then of course the Barnum effect fully kicks in. So I think this is a valid point of criticism, as it is also backed by science generally, because this Barnum effect is proven and it exists. This takes us now to the second most common point of criticism which we encountered, and this is that Gallup does not offer advice and clear solutions on how you can minimize your weaknesses, how you can get rid of your weaknesses. Well, we should take a look at the original intention of Don Clifton when he developed this test. He wanted to create a test which helps people focus on their strengths, because he believed that you should focus on your strengths and ignore the weaknesses. Don't work on them. So basically, the intention of this test was totally different. It is like you are taking a screwdriver and actually need a hammer. Now, and indeed, Gallup says something about those weaknesses. Gallup tells you to be aware of them and how they may impact your performance and what you want to achieve. For example, in one of my tests which I participated in, harmony was the lowest. Now, people who know me may also be surprised why harmony is so low. As we talked about, a definition issue maybe. I'm a very easygoing person, I almost never quarrel, but yes, I give the honest opinion. So if our lovely daughter comes to me and asks me how I like the dress, she gets an honest opinion. My team members, they get an honest opinion. Yeah? So this is why harmony is low, and you just need to be aware if there's some diplomatic mission, then I might need to get someone else on board. So I need to understand how does this impact maybe my daily work life, and I should get others on board who have complementary strengths. This is what Gallup says. So Gallup gives some advices, but it does not give you an advice on how for me to get rid of this harmony issue. So Gallup, if you're watching this here, I can't sugarcoat, it's in my talent set. Yeah? So this being said, here we have a wrong tool situation. This takes us now to the other, for me, quite surprising opinion, which said, yeah, it was used for ranking purposes. This test was used in our company for ranking purposes. So if someone had strategy, for example, on number 1, he or she was considered to be the better planner in comparison to someone who had strategy on number 6. Again here, we have a wrong tool issue, because we need to be aware that this is not a ranking tool. For me, strategy, my recent test is number 1. Fantastic. Now someone has got strategy on number 6, for example. Still, this other person may be the better planner. Why is that so? Because I have a different education, I have other job experience, a different experience in this situation. I may also have another intellectual background. So maybe this other person is close to a genius. So surely he or she will be the better planner, although the ranking is low. So it is not an absolute ranking to compare others, but it's your relative ranking. We should be aware of this. Don't use this to rank people against each other. Again, screwdriver where you want a hammer. Now, the last point of criticism around the results is using the results for finding the ideal candidate for a job. And for this, we need to understand that this set of talents might differ depending on what I believe would be the best fit for this role. For example, sales. Now, if you think about someone who's talented in sales, we immediately think about someone who's maybe very extrovert. winning others over. Gallup would call this in their cosmos. Yeah, so someone who's really convincing right away, and we say, yeah, this is the sales genius. Could be. Could be for specific products, for specific services. But for others, it's not the one who's winning others over by talking a lot and convincing, but maybe we need listeners. Maybe the listeners are the best salespeople. For example, if you would ever contact me or my people, we don't have this kind of salespeople on board. We have listeners. They try to understand if it's at all the right fit, and they'll tell you it's more a consulting part. It's not about selling something, but still, we of course sell something. This being said, the description of what this person needs to bring on board, the talents which this person needs, are different. Now, Gallup of course says, no problem. Let us come to your company, we do an assessment, we understand what the nature of the job truly is, and then we're going to define a set of talents, and then you will have the right fit and we'll help you recruit those. Yes, I understand the point. But again, here we need to be aware that this doesn't seem to be an easy tool. You can't just apparently use this tool and their recommendations to do this recruiting as easy as it may sound. You may need Gallup on board to really find the right fit. I just wanted to raise this because this will take us then to quite some surprising conclusions and findings and recommendations if it comes to using Gallup Strength Test for recruiting, for self-assessment and for team building. So now we're coming to the conclusion and my honest recommendation, and at the end of the video I'm also going to reveal a method which you could use instead and which is totally for free. In this video I try to cover the most important points of criticism, but if you feel that I missed something, if you want to add something or agree or disagree, then write it in the comments. I love to discuss with you. And also, if you're currently thinking about someone who could also use this information, then click the share button and share this video with a person dear to you, because sharing is caring, and we leaders, we love to care about people. And don't forget to subscribe, like and ring the bell so that you will never miss a video on high performance and great team management again. But now our conclusions. Number 1. Is this tool useful for recruiting, and would I recommend it? Definitely not. I would not recommend to use Gallup Strengthfinder or CliftonStrengths for recruiting. Why is that so? Well, if we use a tool for recruiting purposes, the idea behind it is that we reduce the gut feeling factor, meaning that we create some structured approach with objectivity so that we don't have human errors. Okay, but we have seen how flawed this approach is. We have seen that it's not unbiased. We have seen that the reliability is lacking, that we get results which may not have the true meaning, which are not predicting if a candidate is truly the right candidate for a role. We have seen that there are many fluctuations, that it depends, of course, also on the self-serving bias and how this may affect the results. So this being said, what we're creating here is an illusion of objectivity. We're creating an illusion of reliability and a structured approach. And I believe in honesty. I believe, hey, why not be honest? Yes, our recruiting process, like any other recruiting process, has got also the gut feeling factor. And I've also seen in companies who are using Gallup's approach thoroughly, meaning like also consulted by Gallup, I've seen hiring mistakes which were quite amazing. Hiring mistakes which were sometimes more significant than those who are not using this approach. This does not mean that immediately catastrophes break out, but I'm just saying the more you rely on the system, the less you seem to use your brain and your gut. This is my opinion. What do you think about this? Write in the comments. But this takes us now to the next point, which is, would I use Gallup Strengthfinder or CliftonStrengths for self-assessment and for team building? And here my maybe surprising recommendation is, yes, use it. But why, if it's got so many flaws and if it's not really predictive? Well, maybe the idea behind this is not to so much predict exactly, but more to use it as a conversation starter. And this I've seen in many companies who use this instrument, that they shifted the full momentum away from constantly trying to find errors and negativity to a more productive approach where people support each other, appreciate each other's strengths and talents, and also understand if someone has got maybe some weaknesses or non-strengths. This is part of human nature. And I've seen developments of teams with true appreciation and really focus on what they can achieve and not what they are not achieving, not the blame game. Now, I don't know if you agree with this, just write it into the comments. So as a conversation starter and as a tool, makes perfect sense. And when it's not so important, if exactly the talents are ranked 100% as the test says. Now, if you want to use it as a conversation starter, you may also use another approach, which we use at the Global Leadership Excellence Program. Here we use a systematic approach without a test to start a conversation around strengths. And maybe you're going to try out this approach, or you're going to take a look at it. This is why I compiled this approach for you, and you can download it. The link is in the description, as said, totally for free. And maybe you just start the conversation in your team or with a partner around strengths. Very easy to use approach, and our people at the Global Leadership Excellence Program, they love it. I hope you liked this video. Let me know what you think, and if you're interested, take a look at one of the other videos around leadership skills and developing yourself and your team to high performance. And see you then, and never forget, leading is caring about people.